Making more art. In the previous episode, we asked whether creating more is the price of staying relevant, whether artists and writers are being pushed into a cycle where output matters more than intention. But that question leads somewhere deeper and a lot more uncomfortable. Because if making more art keeps us visible, what is it actually doing to the value of the work itself? We live in a world where content is endless. Books pile up faster than they can be read, images blur together in an infinite scroll, and somewhere in that flood, even meaningful work risks becoming temporary, consumed, discarded, and replaced almost instantly. So we have to ask, are we, as creators, contributing to that? Is the pressure to produce more slowly turning art into something disposable, something closer to a product than an expression? Or is there still a way to create consistently without feeding into that cycle? This is where the conversation continues, pulling apart not just the demands placed on artists, but the impact those demands have on the work itself and the world it exists in. These are the themes that my good friend and fellow artist MK Gibson and I are going to explore in today's episode. So, with all that out of the way, welcome back to another Butcher Shop. Okay, so before we begin, I wanna come back to the fact that we used the death cat on the episode where, we talked about if you don't make more art, you're basically dead. And now we're talking about consumption and we used the village idiot.
Well, or farmer, it's not good to, well, here's the thing. Associating idiot with farming is bad. That's because that's not the case. Obviously those never piss off the people that feed you. And I firmly believe that. So
I would agree, but we live in a country where I think more than 90% of what is locally being produced is actually exported to other countries. So I would say yes, don't fuck with the people that feed you, but the people that feed us live abroad. So
right, we're getting the yokel kind of thing. Like, this is supposed to be yeehaw country, kind of like, unfortunately plays into the hillbilly role of the cat kind of thing. And
this is very hillbilly.
Yeah, and no offense to the hillbillies, and it's like, this is what the consumer wanted when they hired her, so blame them. Anyway.
I did not realize this was a potential cultural offense. I am very sorry.
Well, I think it was when you frame it a certain way. I thought it was like local whatever guy, not village idiot, because that would be something different. It doesn't matter.
So what are your thoughts? Because, again, this is like a continuation of the previous episode, which basically was a result of a phone call we had the other day. And in that phone call, and I want to come back to this immediately before maybe even just, to take that deep dive. I watched the documentary, The Shopping Conspiracy, and this is not a tinfoil hat sort of episode, but the things they said in that thing, like the 5 rules of basically selling more, starts out very innocent, where they say, produce more and then waste more and then lie more and hide more. And the way that shit just went down really made me think of the theme of today's episode.
It is. I mean, there's a certain truism that when it's just a matter of time before art becomes a commercial, art becomes a product. That is what everything, best intentions aside, you want to write something, you want to draw something, you want to create something, and that's really cool. But at the same time, if you want to feed yourself, it does become a product at a certain point. Like in the last one we talked about is creating more, diminishing, it was, I'm trying to find what's the best way of framing it. There is something called the law of diminishing returns, and there is a fear that by just creating more, are you just diminishing the whole? And I think any creative feels that way over time, maybe not in the beginning, but it does feel that way over time. It's kind of like, do you create more to stay relevant, like we talked about last time? And then, if you are, then are you just creating more disposable art? okay, we won't even use books or art or anything like that. We'll talk about literally like television shows. That is a form of art. We call it entertainment, but it is a form of art because someone is, you've got cinematographers, you've got actors, you've got these things creating product. How many shows do you watch as comfort food and forget about? And it's just something that's on. Is it just, and how many do you go, oh my goodness, you've got to see this. It is transformative, and the ones that are, I think there's more junk than there is substance, if that makes sense. And does it how many sitcoms do you want to sit down and watch anymore? Because that's kind of a dead medium for people under a certain age group. Sitcoms are not, that you kind of it ruined the whole by having an abundance of them, and we just got burnt out on them, and it's not fun anymore. It doesn't reflect the world, and it's not art at that point. It doesn't reflect the world. Sometimes you get a Married with Children type of thing, which then, pokes at the false reality of a lot of these sitcoms do. And then that creates a new art form of looking at it, at certain things. But I don't know. I've been vamping here for a little bit. What do you feel? Because here's the thing. I'm always weary of being I don't want to sound authoritative. I don't want to sound like it is or it is not. I always have my opinions because your mileage may vary, or your kilometer in you weird countries. How some people might not feel this way at all. They're just I like what I like and I don't care. I don't give it more deeper thought than that. But I am always petrified of creating more and thus ruining the whole.
I think generally I don't have that exact same fear. I personally think that by creating more you get better. So for me it kind of works backwards. So the further I get into my career and the better I feel like I'm getting, the more I start to become ashamed of the stuff that I've published before. This goes for my books as well as my art, by the way. But where my brain goes to is literally the value of art when we start mass producing it. And what comes to mind is, of course, Andy Warhol, who kind of industrialized his art, by making, new prints. He really turned his art into a product, and he might have been the first person to do it on that scale. And what it makes me think of is, how is it possible that today, those Andy Warhol prints are worth a gazillion dollars? Whereas your average artist has maybe a limited print of something, let's say they have 2,500 prints worldwide, and that is then, considered a collector's edition, so the price goes up. So basically, the answer to the question, of the episode is, the more art you make, or the more you make of a specific thing, the less value it gets or it has. So, if that's the conclusion to the episode, it was a great one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Well, no, okay. So if we play devil's advocate, obviously, you mentioned Andy Warhol. It's a great example because he was famously anti-consumerist, but to get his point across, he created consumerist-like products that people went gaga for, and thus created consumerism, just proving his point, And if you're looking does creating more devalue? Someone would argue yes, someone would argue no. You creating more.
Well, but that's what I'm trying to say. Warhol got away with it because he was super, super famous. The thing is, though, when I do this, when I say, okay, I have a limited print run of something and I run out of those prints, I basically shoot myself in the foot, because after that print won't ever make me any money again. So basically, I have to choose between, am I going to make this a limited run and really create something for the collectors, still having to ask a fair price for that will not completely pay my bills, or will I, make it a non-exclusive so that I can sell it for a longer period of time, but then lose the exclusivity of it. This is exactly the problem, the philosophy, I guess, that we are discussing here. And it happens to me all the time.
No, I get you. I get you. It is so in story writing terms, it feels like, and I love to use TV as an example, because people watch more TV and movies than they do read the same books. So, but there might be a certain show you really liked in season 1 and season 2, whatever, but by season 3, 4, or 5, or 6, it starts to be, it feels milked, it feels forced, it feels like a shell of what it used to be, and I loved a lot of great TV shows that like just feel like they became less over time, and I wish they had just quit while they were ahead. But it makes too much money. It makes too much money, and it gets too many eyes on, and it brings too much joy and comfort. It gets a lot of corporate sponsorship. So there is this, like, you don't get to say no and walk away. You have a machine that needs to be fed, so feed the machine. And that is by nature exactly what we're talking about. So whenever I'm writing something, like I mentioned the last one, I tend not to read books beyond seven in a series. There are very few exceptions where I keep reading afterwards, because I feel like the story should have been told by this point, and I know, like, I'm coming up on the cusp of finishing off 3 of my series. One will be done in 4 books, one will be done in 7 books, and the other one will be 6 or 7. But like, again, I reached that number because like I've built into a certain way, like, this is my totality of the story I want to tell. There's more information, but that's not the story. There might be a few loose threads, but that's, again, not the story. I finish the story, finish the product, because if you keep going on and on and on, it's like, and in comic terms, we call it power creep. As people get so powerful, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, it's a great example for those people who play D&D. At level 1, yes, you are powerful enough to fight. You could knock out pretty much any townie. They've got like 3 hit points, and you start with like 7, 8, 9. You're 3 times as tough. But by level 5, you're fighting some big monsters. By level 10, you're cranking out things, and by level 20, you're killing gods. And that is the power creep of anything you create in the literature world. So you're always afraid, like, am I going too big too soon? When does it stop? When does your character go from being like responsible street level to like punching out Superman? It doesn't translate necessarily to quote unquote the art world in the same way. But if there's always new stuff coming out, is there time to appreciate what there is as well? For someone like you, like obviously, when we talked last time, you were working in different, like, you work in the Age of Mice, you worked in the Dutch Masters, etc. These buckets, these compartments, however, what term, series, I guess. Do you feel that like you need to take time off between them, or just change the style enough that like it doesn't feel that it's not devaluing what you did before?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about that in that way. I think for me, changing the style or changing like the story that I'm telling, so the Age of Mice, etc. I think for me that is a way to distance myself from the work that I've done for a whatever consecutive amount of weeks. So I think in a way I do that to create new mind space, because if I stay with the same thing, I don't challenge myself and I start repeating myself. This is basically an excellent example of again, this is going to be the one episode where we constantly say, well, last week we said this. Well, that's because it is.
Well, it is a continuation of that topic, though, and it's like that's why it's important. It is, though.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm constantly referring to stuff that we said back then, which is rightfully so. But it just kind of feels.
Well,
funny.
You told everybody last time it was going to be a 2-parter, so I mean,
I know. So, see, I prepared people for it, so.
All right.
Anyway, so whenever I change the stories that I'm trying to tell, which, then indirectly means that I'm changing the style or changing, the type of characters or figures that I'm working with, I think I need that to sort of cleanse the palette. And the same is happening, during this commission, because, again, this whole Cataclysm commission contains 23 cats. Basically, I have to punch out 1 cat every week in order to make the deadline. I am a little bit behind on that, simply because I've reached a point where after drawing 10 or 11 of these cats, I need to do something else because I need that distance again. And I don't know if that is because I'm otherwise devaluating my art. Maybe it is because I'm not looking at things through a sharp eye anymore. It becomes an autopilot. Okay, you got the cat, here's the eyes, here's the nose, here's the little character, flip a hat on it, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want that to happen. So I guess in a way, that is an answer to your question, right? Like, I step away because I need that value back into my work again. And to do that, I need to do something else for a bit.
Well, that's fair. I mean, like, I get that I really do, because there are many times I'm working on a certain project and I need to write something different. I need to go from my drama to a comedy because it gets me out of a different headspace for me. I'm emotionally trying to create these characters and work with these characters and be invested in these characters. But, if everything is all chuckles, then I need something with some substance. And then when I switch to something of substance, I need to lighten the fuck up because I am now depressed.
Yes.
I'm in a bad state.
Yeah, I mean, it works the very same way for me as well. I mean, I don't know if you remember the color pencil art that I did of the dead knight in the grass. That was just old me that was so into drawing dark things, dark and gritty shit, and that just wanted to come out for a second because I was surrounded by happy cheeky cats, and they were so cute, and they were very sweet, and I love making them. Don't get me wrong, I love this project, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. But to have that space to allow yourself, that darker part of you to come out and say, okay, fine, I'm going to draw something dead now. It's necessary. It's very necessary.
Yeah. I feel that's one. It's a great exploration of the soul of the artist, or just a creative. I don't want to just using the word artist because it feels very pretentious, but just creative people. Sometimes it's even if it's you like to sit there and just knit, or maybe I know my my one grandmother, she loved to sit there and knit, but she would switch between all crochet and another kind. I'm not a knitist. I don't know what the term is for one who knits or weave, weaver, but she liked to do different types because she get stuck with. She would do one thing and then she switched to another just because it just made her feel better that way. And so I know that is with a lot of us. My one friend, I was always driving by, one of my neighbors, he's a really cool guy. They're creative weirdos like the rest of us, but I know he loves to work on it. His outlet is to work on. He's a mechanic. He works work on things, but sometimes he needs a break from that. So I caught him as I was driving by and I waved. He's outside with an anvil as he's beating on metal to because he needs to smith something because he does that on spare time too. So it's
yes. My brain is still kind of stuck to the crochet, by the way, because here in the Netherlands, crocheting basically is, if you literally translate it, it's called hooking. And so we have people calling themselves happy hookers.
You say my grandmother's a hooker.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
100%.
Hey, mortgages have to be paid. Sex work is work. Okay, buddy. So let's, and without the gooners out there, then it's not work. So let's all remember the what's what I'm looking for, the food chain of sex work. So
yes, or crocheting in this case. I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in.
No, it's all good. It's funny. So I don't know. I'm always afraid of because I don't want to ever tell somebody I know for me making more doesn't make me happy, but making stuff that I like makes me happy. I guess that's so. If I'm always making something that I like, then I don't feel like I'm making more for the sake of making more.
That is a good point, though.
But if I know there are certain, like I said, I mentioned last time, I know that one book series, I could make more. I could go, just keep going and people would buy it. I'd always find something new to rant about because that particular series is very zeitgeisty. It's the narrator talks to the audience, makes fun of the audience, makes fun of everything going on in the world, makes fun of everything. He's an open narcissist, and it's very easy to get into that headspace and just make fun of an old man yelling at clouds in funny rant ways. And those books sell, but I don't want that to be that's not my legacy. It's a part of me. It's not what I want to. It's not the hill I'm going to die on.
But is this because this is not? It's not paying your bills. I mean, how would you have looked at this?
It's my best-selling series. That's the problem. I'm ready to give it up.
But you're not depending on...
Right. Oh, I think you say because it doesn't pay bills. No, it is. It's one of those... I want to be more than that, and I've been doing that for the last... Let me see. That first one came out in 2016, 2017. So 9 years I've been writing that series. This is book 7. So, I'm good. I'm good. I would like to move on now. If I ever want to revisit it, I can, call it Villain's Comeback, a one-off special book, if people gave a shit, but I don't.
Okay, let me rephrase the question then. Yeah. Would you look at this whole issue differently if you were actually motivated to make this, to have this be your professional career?
I see your question. Yes. Uh-huh. Ooh. That's a hard one. It's all right. So I don't think, okay. I think I would look at it differently, but the argument would stay the same. If you're making more to make more, you are watering down your product. So you have to go out of your way to ensure that you're not watering down your product. And oddly enough, I've met a lot of creatives who don't think about that at all.
They just create.
They just make more, makes the fans happy. They just create. Well, I mean, they create in a series. Like I'll just make more. I'm like, and it sometimes it seems like they're oblivious to the what they're doing, and sometimes I know it's very conscious what they're doing because they've said on occasion, well, they said the fans didn't buy my other thing, so why should this is what they want. Like, get it, but like, how did you present the other thing? There are so many different ways. Like, I don't want to armchair quarterback someone else's career because I know about the ups and downs of my own. But that said, creating more for the sake of creating more, you have to be wary unless you're just watering down the whole. Because, okay, put it this way: if you let's say you're still doing Age of Mice, and in 3 years of now you're doing even more. Like, this is the night hooker, this is the mouse hooker down on hook, Hooker Alley. This is the prostitute mouse in the medieval times. This is the how many
stories can you tell?
Would you just say
about the same? No,
right.
I understand the question perfectly fine.
Because especially that's a great way. That's a great way you point to things like telling stories. What do they say? There's only they used to say only 3 different stories. I think they changed it to 6 now. Man versus man, man versus nature, man versus self. Well, but then they've changed some other, they've tweaked it a little, whoever they happen to be. But you know what I'm saying? There's only 6 or 7 primary stories, and how you tell it is.
Sure, I suppose for books, yes. I think in art you have a little bit more space with that, because for example, I mean, the Age of Mice is literally human history but shown from the perspective of mice. Right. So I have 2026 plus years to dive into Sure, agree. And okay, you're also a video gamer. How many Assassin's Creed games do you want to play where they do the exact same thing just in a different location? And that's boring. It's just, hey, it's the exact same mechanics. Yes. Is it okay? But is it boring? Okay, is it boring, or is the execution just dwindling? Because I think in a very specific case for Assassin's Creed, I almost forgot how to language there. I think the game mechanics or just the structure of the game is not as good as it used to be, and I think that really contributes into the devaluation of the Assassin's Creed brand, basically.
Well, sort of. I mean, I'm not here to pick on Ubisoft because everybody dunks on that company in their own way, but I'm using it just as an example. You have this. Obviously the first game was you're playing. No, not Etsy. That was the second game. Altair, I believe his name was.
Go back to Destiny. We have plenty of stuff to talk about.
Well, this is germane. This is germane because it started one way. It was a stealth assassin game that's played fairly linearly, and then right around after Black Flag-ish, it started becoming a little bit more open world, a little bit more. You have things you can do, and then by the time they did the prequel one, where set in like ancient Egypt, it's a full-on action RPG open world game that is vastly different, but.
I think the one in Egypt and the one in Greece were copy-paste.
Yes, but here's the thing. By that token, so was the one set in Scandinavia with Vikings. It was the exact same mechanics just with the Vikings, and that's my point. Like, so how many times hey, it's the same thing but this time it's Russian Cossacks, and this time it's samurai, and this time it's medieval knights, and so you're just putting a skin on a thing. You're not really changing much, and that's where I feel like that is devaluing the whole. But
this is where, in the art world, collectors come in, because believe it or not, there are people actively collecting all the mice that I make.
That's
They specifically want the mice. And we're not talking about hundreds of people, but...
Yeah, but you're not, you haven't built 20 years of mice.
No, but I am in the process of creating more. I don't think I will ever stop drawing mice. I just don't think I will draw a mouse every week.
Sure. Okay, but again, to use this again, we're using the Ubisoft and what's called analogy here. Like there's been an Assassin's Creed game coming out every couple of years for the last like 15 years. You know, it's like Ubisoft makes other games, of course, but there's always been a Ubisoft, there's always been an Assassin's Creed game in development for at least 10 or 15 years. Like I have to pull the numbers up in front of me trying to think when the first one came out.
How many times have we bought a Destiny DLC or season pack knowing it was going to be exactly the same as the previous one? In fact, it might have gotten worse.
Yeah, well, and exactly. Well, and that's highlighting the point. Like, you know, it is. I don't know. For some reason, I find, you know, despite Bungie being a bigger name at the time, you know, Assassin's Creed games being a little more ubiquitous when it comes to like people who may not.
But Destiny is the language that I speak, so it makes the conversation a lot easier.
I understood, but I'm talking to the audience. I'm talking to the audience, the audience, who may or may not know about video games, but they've heard Assassin's Creed before, so they might not know Destiny 2, or Bungie. So
fine. Make your point, Dan. Go on.
Well, that's my point. Like, you know, that is a perfect example. The games are art and they are a service. They you know, there was an argument a long time ago, are games art? And you know, I think Roger Ebert famously said games are not art and people fought back, and it has been reclassified. Games are art. They are protected under art things. So cool, great. But what happens when games as a service becomes a product and devalues the whole, and people like don't care anymore, and then it does exactly what we're talking about. It devalues the whole. It becomes a consumer product. It becomes throwaway, and all the work that the artists who create these games, Destiny, Assassin's Creed, whatever, these franchise-like things with installments, especially a live service type of game or thing that are just keep making. You know, they're putting their heart and soul into the work. But as the consumer, I'm like, I've seen this, I've touched this, I've done this. You're not innovating enough. I don't care. And how many real life relationships go through like quote unquote the 7-year itch? How many people like I've seen your ass every day. I know you. I smell you. I see you. I'm bored with you. Go get kidnapped. Have something new happen to you. I'm bored. So it's unfortunately that is with the situation. What's the expression? Familiarity breeds contempt. And I feel that that's why sometimes making more art is walking into that, you know.
Where do we draw the line then? Because, you know, I think mostly I agree with this, but that would create a very black and white situation, you know, within the scenario. So if it becomes a black and white issue, then where is the line? When does something start to devalue, you know, the essence of something? How does that happen?
Again, I'm never going to say something is right or something is wrong. I'm not saying in an objective way. I'm always speaking in a subjective way. When it stops being fun, when you stop, for the creator, it's both. You know, the creator feels it first. Don't act like you don't. Like it's like you can't sit there. And some of the games we've played, some of the things like we've gone through, and the DLCs we've gotten, say to use Destiny for an example. We know, like you said, it's more of the same. It is another annual pass. It's another expansion. It's another, you know, episode. It's another season thereof. Don't tell me that the entire staff at Bungie is sitting there going, "Oh my God, we are cooking. This is the best. The fans are gonna love this. High five." No, they know.
I wonder though, is that really the case? I wonder if
there is no planet where that happens. Like, you know, we're doing the same thing again, right? You know, it's like they're getting paid. It's a job. It's a job. For some of those people, it has to be a job.
I think I disagree with that so much.
Okay.
I mean, respectfully.
I disagree with your disagree. Like, again, I'm not speaking for these people. You know, if you happen to be a Bungie developer, or please reach out to us.
I think it is in the majority, sure, it's a job and it pays the bills and they work there because it's a prestige project.
No, I'm saying when you're doing the same thing over and over and over, and your input, your desire to create and innovate and make better. So to change the art to be art and not just a product is then pushed down by the powers that be. Say, no, just make more of this and we're going to package it and sell it.
Yeah, but that's a layer above that. That's not.
How does that not kill your artistic spirit? But that's exactly what I'm saying. I think the people who are working at it have their spirit killed to the point where they started like, it's just a job. Don't act like you haven't been on a commission. I know I have. I'll speak for me. I've been on commissions before where it's like I'm doing a thing and I'm falling out of love a long time ago. I'm doing it because I've been paid. And I don't want to argue anymore. I don't want to fight. I don't want to have another discussion about, yes, now If I can find a way to reinvigorate my love for whatever's I'm working on, cool. I will try that. But there comes a point when something is a product, it does kind of kill your heart, and that sucks. And making more to stay relevant, like we talked about last week, you what's the old song from The Gambler? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run, know when to dip out, and know when to come back. But if you're reliant on it as income, you have to find ways to keep yourself sane.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I think that is just the devil's dilemma that we are in this, contemporary world, is we have to stay relevant if we want to pay the bills with what we do. But by doing that, we start deflating the value of our work. So, it's an interesting problem. And I think there are few people who find that balance, that perfectly walk that line. And
now I'm gonna save this for a quick second. Like when I mentioned Assassin's Creed earlier, the first game came out in 2007, so 19 years ago. There have been 14 main installments of the series, and a few side projects on like other mobile games and things like that.
I probably know like 5 or 6 of them. I don't.
I probably know most of them. That's the problem. But it's like it is now. For someone like me who played most of them and like over time, it's just started seeing, when you see how the sausage is made, when you see the pattern repeat itself, you start to stop caring a little bit. But for now, that said, I'm old, I'm jaded, I'm angry, whatever. But there's always someone going to be young and new, and this will be their first something. And maybe for them, it isn't that way. It's not devaluing because, that's the other perspective. It's like Einstein, it's everything is about how from what angle you see it at. The theory of relativity is like one thing's a relative to another. So
this is a very interesting subject to dive into on a later episode. We're talking about how different generations experience the world of art around them, whether that's through books or art. And that is actually a very, very interesting subject.
And that we can do that on a 3-parter for the next time, because yes. I know for a fact I argue all the time with my in-laws who I love them to death, but he's a musician or was a musician for years and a school teacher, and he is unfortunately of the opinion modern music doesn't have the heart that it used to have. And it's the same thing every old person says about what's ever happening now, and everything sucks compared to then.
Yeah, so it's great. You can get to be the old person, and then I get to be the young person, and we'll argue with each other. I find it a great idea.
I love the idea that you think you're young. That's adorable.
I know.
Here's the thing. If I'm at to a person under the age of like 22, you're a boomer, and I'm just dust. My son says I have dust in my blood instead of blood. So you're a boomer to them, 30, whatever you are, mid-30s.
Yeah, but the thing is that I don't look 30-something to them. Just the other day, I was somewhere, I don't even remember where it was, and they said, "Oh, I swear to God, you're 30," and I was like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Oh, I've gotten "Oh, you don't look blank age," and that's cool. But time makes fools of us all. Don't worry,
he'll catch up with me. I know.
Yes.
Anyway, we've reached a point where we need to start asking our question because we ran out of video a couple of minutes ago.
What do you think by making more of anything, are you devaluing the whole? Does your art become pop art? Does it transition then to just being a throwaway level of consumerism?
Does it become less valuable because I create something every week?
Yeah.
No, I think that's an excellent question, and I very much look forward to the 1 or 2 responses we're going to get in the comments.
Exactly.
Those
two people rock.
But yeah, I mean, let's keep this conversation open. Let's really, because I think you and I both have an idea of how we feel about this and what we're afraid of when this is actually the truth. But I very much look forward to how the people watching this are thinking about this. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Speaking of conversations, we have a conversation every week. So if you don't want to miss out on that, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and potentially that notification button so that every Friday when we upload a new video, you get a little ping that says your next episode of The Butcher Shop is online for watching. Anything to add, Gib?
No, I'm good. You did well. It was a great transition. You stuck the landing.
My plugs are getting better, aren't they?
The knee was a little wobbly. I'm going to give it a 7 or an 8, but it's only a 3 from the Russian judge.
I'll take the 8, thank you. Right, thanks so much for watching, guys, and thanks, Gib, for being there again.
Always, dude. Later, everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.